And you get a dopamine hit. I'm not a psychologist, but everybody knows this is true. You get a little dopamine hit when you see that red box with a white number. Ooh, somebody wants, I'm important. Whatever you're working on right now, it was exciting like 60 seconds ago. And now it's so boring. I don't want to do this right now. And you don't say that. You just say, I'll get back to this. This is important, but this other thing's important too. And it gives you a reason to jump ship to the next thing. And once you do that, you go and you go and you go and you go and you go, you're never working on the thing you're supposed to do. So we can all claim to be just so busy. And we're busier than ever before and probably less productive than we've ever been.
Welcome to the Social Media Takeaway. I'm your host, Louise McDonnell, and today I'm speaking to Charles Alexander. Charles is a business coach. He is the author of Start Now, Quit Later, and How to Start and Grow Your Business Without Quitting Your Full-Time Job, which is an Amazon bestseller. And he's also the host of Do More by Doing Less. And today we are going to talk all about how to create a 4-day work week. You're very welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Louise. I'm very welcome to be here.
Great. This is, I have to say, such an intriguing subject. Like we all kind of start in business because we want the freedom to not have to answer to anybody, and we want, to work less, but sometimes we end up working more. Sometimes we end up working days, nights, weekends. Before we get into it, tell us about your journey and how you came to be an expert in this area.
So look, and you're 100% right. The reason people start a business, rarely as ever do they say, I just want to make all the money in the world and buy all the boats and jewelry and cars. No one ever really says that. They say they want to do what they want, when they want, how they want. They want freedom. They think money will get them there, and it does get you part of the way, but unfortunately, it also chains you to the desk if you don't do it the right way. And you're talking about journeys. So I've been business coach for almost 2 decades now, and on a wide variety of topics. That's why I wrote that book, Start Now, Quit Later, because I was watching entirely too many people that are roughly my age, let's say late 40s, that would just be frustrated because they were chained to a desk somewhere else, but for someone else. And they thought, man, if I do this on my own, I'll come and go as I please. And then they would, cash out their retirement savings, sell the house, and invest all into one thing. And boom, then they were chained to the desk of their own making, which is very frustrating. So talking about me coming up with where I am now, doing all this business coaching, working with startups, working with people that are in business. And I even hate to bring this up because I think we're all pandemicked out, but to get to the point where I am now, 4 years ago, right at 4 years ago too, is funny. I was, sent home to go from the office to go we're going to go home and work for a few weeks, and we're going to ride this whole COVID thing out. Like, oh, okay. And, fast forward months later, I'm working harder from home than I ever have in the office. And I always prided myself on, I'm the time management guru. And one day I remember specifically thinking, I'm at home, I got the laptop open, I got, all my notes out, and I've got this big to-do list, and I'm going to knock it all out. And here in the States, there was a lot of money for small business owners to help pay the bills until they can make more money to pay the bills. And the rules on how you got that money changed by the minute. Whatever, I have no idea what everybody thinks of government in your neck of the woods, but here look, we're all very proud Americans, and we also know that everybody running everything here is a lunatic. So we're all in agreement on that. We might not be in agreement on anything else. And that one day, I'm sitting there working and I'm distracting myself and I'm trying to answer an email. And then I think, oh, you know what? That reminds me of a video I just saw. So I'll go watch the video. And then boom, one at a time. I got 3 kids, by the way, Louise. They're now 15, 13, and 11. So back then they were whatever, 11, 9, and 7. One at a time, they would barge through the door. Daddy, I can't get on this thing called Google Classroom. What's Google Classroom? I don't know. So we're homeschooling at the same time. So I'm getting the oldest one logged into this thing called Google Classroom. So I'll go back and then I start trying to remember where I left off. And I'm on LinkedIn, and then I go to my text message, and then the middle one cops in and she's in tears. Daddy, the iPad won't work. All right, let's see. Okay, well, you got to plug it in, Pumpkin. Y'all played games on it all. So plug it in, she's in. So I'm done with her. Where was I? I was on a text message. No, was it email? And then the last one came in. It was my first grader at the time. Daddy, I can't get on this thing called Zoom. Dude, why do you need a Zoom? That's what the teacher said. Louise, have you ever seen 20 first graders on Zoom for the first time ever? It is bananas. They were just, you see just the tops of heads, kids streaking by with no shirts. I got him logged in, locked the door. And for the next 2 hours, I was just befuddled. I would go from DMs in Facebook to the Small Business Administration website, back to my website. I was just all over the place. And I realized I didn't need my own kids to distract me. I was doing a fine job all on my own. And I'm the time management guru. From that point, and that was my own midlife crisis. I drew a line in the sand, started doing my own research. Listeners, if you get nothing else out of this, read anything by Cal Newport. Reread the book Deep Work at that point. Wrote all in the margins. It looks like a crazy person. Just right, I wrote everywhere, took all the notes, typed the notes up with no clue why I was typing the notes up. And it became kind of what I have now, this 4-day work week program. And just realized I got to rethink how I do all of this stuff. And from there is where we got to where we are now.
Okay. So the 4-day work week, like who doesn't want to work a day less than a week? Who doesn't want that freedom? So for somebody that's listening here today, what advice would you give? So what's the starting point? What do they need to do?
So the starting point sounds a little unique. So I used to tell people years ago, you just block off the time, work on the things that are the most important, and then everything else will fall into place. Well, that's backwards. People block off time, but they don't know how they're spending their time. And worse yet, they don't necessarily have a goal for what they want to do once they free up time. So that very recently I have changed, and I'm sticking with it until the cows come home. And I still don't know what that means. It's the same. We have to figure out what we want to, we have to set a goal. Literally, you have to write it out. There's some magic to writing things out, but you have to write out what you want your 4-day work week to look like, and then what you want to do with your time off. Here we have a big problem with, for example, we have people that will retire. They work their whole life, 30, 40 years. I want to retire. I want to retire. I don't want to do this job anymore. We're just going to retire. What are you going to do in your time? I don't know. I'll figure it out then. You know how many people I've seen retire, and then within a year, they're either back to work or their health drastically falls off a cliff? There's a lot of research and study to show that they didn't have a goal for retirement. They just thought once they hit retirement, this magic utopia would befall them. And once they figure out that I don't know what I do now, they're lost. So the first thing people have to do is decide, and it can be fluid. It can change. This program, we're we're about to finish up a 90-day program right now. And I have people start every program. Tell me what you want your week to look like and what you want to do with your free time. And that has changed for some people. Some people want Fridays off. Some people want Mondays off. Some people want to take a random day every week off. Some people who are at 6 days a week, their 4-day work week looks like a 5-day work week now. But what do you want to do with your time? It almost always looks like spend more time with family, spend more time with friends. I want to cook. People want to cook. People want to read. People want to travel. Surprisingly big answer, Louise, I don't know if this is for you, but everybody here wants to hike. I have no concept why. A lot of people that say they want to hike, I don't think have ever hiked a day in their life, but there's some utopia of hiking in their mind where they've got on their new Timberland boots and they've got that little walking cane. But whatever, that's what they say they want to do, so good for them. But if you don't figure that out first, the rest of it, when you start running into trouble, Louise, what would you do with extra time, for example?
I think this is fascinating because I had never thought about, what I would do with the extra time. And as you're speaking, I'm kind of thinking, well, what do I do with my Saturdays? My Saturdays can sometimes be, like probably the most unproductive day of the week because I don't have a plan
You don't
for
have a
it.
plan.
Yeah.
And that sounds so silly, and people get frustrated. Well, I just want to have my free time, and I don't want to plan. I want to be a robot, blah, blah, blah. Now, I'm not telling you to be a robot, but if you don't have at least a thought of what you're going to do, you'll waste that time, and then you'll regret wasting that time. So now, granted, I just told you I've got a house full of kids. I always have plans on the weekend, whether I want them or not. So I know what I'm doing this weekend. But for me, I want to rest more. I want to hang out with my kids more. I want to do more activities with them, basketball, football. I want to cook more. We have a pool. I want to go to my pool more. I see it out there. I want to go to it now. I want to be in the pool. So I know that's what I want to do. But if I don't have that in mind, the next time I have an interruption. So let's say I'm working on the next 90-day program. I'm making tweaks, and there's one module I know I've got to fix, got to redo the video, redo the homework. And then a text message comes. So, well, let me just check it real quick. Oh, that makes me think of this. Well, let me go do this. Well, let me go jump on that real quick. This customer needs me. And if I don't answer them right away, then you go through those mental gymnastics of rationalizing, well, I'll just take a minute. And it doesn't take a minute. It takes 10 minutes. And then it takes 23 minutes to return to the same level of focus where you were before, research shows. And then before you know it, you've drifted off into all of these different directions because you didn't realize you were making a trade. So one thing I always tell people, every time you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to 2 other things.
So true.
Cal Newport, listen to Cal Newport, and then scribble this down somewhere, folks. So every time you say yes to something, whether you believe it or not, you're saying no to two other things. And I have that happen all of the time. We have that discussion in our home. But like, they want, my wife, well, they want me to serve on the PTO board. Well, you can serve on it, but that's going to mess us up a couple of other plays. Well, no, it won't. I'll just add it. Unless you're magic and you're adding hours to the day, there's no way around it. You are making a trade, whether you admit it or not. That's irrelevant. It is happening. So if you know what you want to spend your time on, I want to be with family, friends, hike. Let's say you're still growing a business. I need to prospect, build more content. I need to meet up with Louise and go through her program so I can be a digital master. If you are bouncing around all over the place, you don't get to do that. And there's no one else to blame at that point. So all of that, to answer your first question, what's the first thing you got to do? You got to figure that out. And then there's another second thing it's like 1 and 1A. You forgot to figure out where your time is going. Nobody knows where their time is going. It's almost like this. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie The Matrix in a while, but it's like we're all in agreement to ignore this one thing together, and we're all living the same little lie. The way I always describe it, take two avenues here. Let's say you want to start managing your budget. Louise, you ever done a personal budget?
Oh gosh, not in a long time.
Okay. No, I haven't either. I say that. We do ours about once a year because we'll get to the end of the month and there's still bills, but like the money in the checking account has disappeared. So we have to figure out what we did to it. And usually we ate it. It's at a restaurant somewhere and we didn't know that. So you can't really set a budget, a proper budget. I'm going to spend this much on, our home, our insurance and food and gas and kids' activities, unless you know how much you're spending now. Oh, you can come up with a budget, but if it's not in reality versus what you're currently spending there, it doesn't work. It falls apart immediately. Or better yet, I've had to learn this one the hard way the older I get. If I want to get in shape, I can't just simply say, well, I'm going to go to the gym more. I'm going to eat less. It's got to be a little more calculated than that. So I've been using an app on my phone, MyFitnessPal. That's the name. On MyFitnessPal, everybody knows that you can just type in whatever food you're eating. And it knows it, you can go to the most obscure restaurant and order a burrito. And it knows that the Los Cantoritos burrito is 500 calories. And it auto calculates it. What I don't know, or what I never realized, is how much I sneak out of the pantry, like when we're making the kids lunch. And I grab a handful of goldfish. Crap, that's 48 calories. Oh, I didn't know that. Or that extra glass of wine I really thought I needed before I went to bed. That's another 150 calories. If you don't calculate that first, you don't track it, then you can't possibly know how much you need to burn, so to speak. Both of those examples are much easier than your time. People lie to themselves and everyone else about how they spend their time, and they want to estimate their time. I'm having a flashback. I think you and I have had this conversation before. For anybody listening, I went through a program where I'm tweaking all my stuff here, and I'm running it by Louise. And I remember specifically, now that I say this, I'm putting you right on the spot. I said,
oh no,
your time.
What's coming?
It is. I remember I was telling you, I've got tools. I know how to do it. There's other ways to do it. And everybody, I'm telling folks, and I got half the people I'm pitching this to, they're nodding their head. The other half like, I don't know. Louise specifically said, can I just tell you? Can I just estimate it? No, Louise, you can't estimate your time. You have no clue how you're spending your time. I wish I had that recorded somewhere. But the idea is that if we think we're spending whatever it is, X number of minutes, hours on, let's say, Facebook, Instagram, or email. Email's the monster out there. We spend a third of our day in email and everybody thinks they're in it for 20 minutes. No way. So 1 and 1A, set goals, and then secondarily, find a way to figure out where you're spending your time.
I just can imagine though, like when you think about it, like all the distractions. So you have your email. I have 3 different email inboxes that I check every day. Then you have WhatsApp. You'd have clients sending you messages on WhatsApp. They could be sending you emails. They could be sending you a message on Facebook, a message on Instagram, a message on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Then you have not only the message inbox, you have the notifications. You have to check those. Then you check your newsfeed of all the different various social media channels. So like, yeah, I'd say most of the time, you're just distracted. And as you said, when you're doing that, there's 2 other things you're not doing.
And you get a dopamine hit. I'm not a psychologist, but everybody knows this is true. You get a little dopamine hit when you see that red box with a white number. Ooh, somebody wants, I'm important. Somebody wants to say something to me.
And
whatever you're working on right now, it was exciting like 60 seconds ago. And now it's so boring. I don't want to do this right now. And you don't say that. You just say, I'll get back to this. This is important. This other thing's important too. And it gives you a reason to jump ship to the next thing. And once you do that, you go and you go and you go and you go and you go, you're never working on the thing you're supposed to do. So we can all claim to be just so busy. And we're busier than ever before and probably less productive than we've ever been.
That's so true. So, okay, so the first thing you do is figure out what you want to do with your time off. Then the second thing that you need to do is figure out where you're spending your time.
Correct.
And then you're disgusted. After you're
then
disgusted
you
with how you
cannot
spend your time.
believe. That's right. One more quick tip for the finding your time for anyone that also feels like they don't spend much time in digital distraction. Take a peek at your screen time. That is a disaster. I can tell you, I have went through this time and again with high achievers, people that are making 7 figures that are so proud of themselves. Of, well, I really only spend, well, I only, and we always put it off on the kids. But kids these days, they're on there all day long. Gen Xers and baby boomers are on their phones between 4 and 5 hours per day. And while I do think there's a lot of really cool things that are in there, and for somebody that is a digital marketer like yourself, you got to spend time in there, but you've also got to be mindful of how you are doing it. 5 hours? Are you sure we needed 5 hours there? You remember, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but there was a day and age where we didn't have this at all. And I know that the times have changed and you can't just yell at people to get off your digital lawn, but go in there and take a peek. And it's not as simple as saying, well, I use it all for business. If your iPhone, I know it'll show you what apps you've been using, how many times you picked up your phone. And like I've said, each time you pick up your phone, according to Gloria Mark, researcher for UC Santa Barbara, she does the same research every 5 years. And it states very clearly it takes us between 23 and 25 minutes to return to the same level of focus. And when I say same level of focus, you go back to the task you were doing, but you're not there. Like your brain has got 4 more things firing away. It's like you're in a crowded room and there's all these distractions and you're not back to where you were. It takes a long time. But if you keep popping the phone up or you keep researching something real quick, you never get into the level of deep work that you need to really do the things you're supposed to be doing.
That's so true. Okay, so you figure out where you're spending your time. What do you do then? Stop spending your time where you're spending it.
Decide what you're going to do with the task you're currently doing. So what I do before that, and this is usually a lot of people's first step, it's like my third, you need to figure out what you're supposed to be doing. And you've got the list now. And I tell folks, don't just do this for a day. It might take a week or two. But you know what you're supposed to be doing. Most folks can figure it out very quickly, but what are the things that only Louise can do that moves the needle that she can't really outsource, delegate, automate, eliminate? And in your case, I mean, I'm sure there's several things, but I know for a fact that if you are in front of people, Louise is awesome. She's in front of people. So if she's doing webinars, if she's doing free trainings, if she's doing podcasts, if she's doing referral calls, that makes everything else work better. Now, a lot of people will tell themselves and other people, well, just I need to spend more time with my clients, just give great customer service. And all of those things are great. But, if I'm really great with my own personal clients, but then I don't do all of the other things that bring me more clients, you're relying on everybody else to just feed you, let's say, referrals and word of mouth in their extra busy lives that we already know that they're distracted. So you figure out what you're supposed to be doing. And it's usually just 3 to 4 things. And I think I'm a lot like you, Louise. A lot of mine need to be doing more live Q&A sessions on LinkedIn. I need to be doing more podcast guesting. I need to be doing more in-person workshops and webinars. And if I do those things, then everything else goes well. But those are always the first things I like to cut because I don't get immediate gratification from it. So once you identify what those are, and great book for figuring that out, The One Thing, written by somebody Keller. Forget his first name, not important. Google The One Thing, you'll find the book. And it asks you like 4 very specific questions to help you narrow down your one thing. Your zone of genius, insert buzzword here, whatever you want to call it, your superpower. Then we hang on to that. I'm doing these. Then the rest of the items on that list go into buckets. What are the buckets? You either eliminate it, you batch it, you delegate it, or you automate it. There's really no other buckets. I'm sure somebody else has another bucket, but to me, those are it. That's what you have to do. And if you didn't know where your time's going, then how do you know what to put in a bucket?
Very true. Okay, what happens then? So when people kind of sit down, obviously this is what you help them through, work through in your program, because I can imagine it's kind of easy to talk about this, but really hard to do.
Well, that's the reason I have, and I'm not making a pitch to whatever you guys want to do listening. You've got to almost get into like a group of people that are that are doing this together. If you do it on your own, it's like, it's one of the hardest things to do on your own. It's
Mm.
doable. I mean, I've got a whole class of people right now that have cut. I mean, and I was telling you before, they've cut those hours. They're not working nights. They're not working weekends. The reason that it works well in a community is because if I'm feeling like, oh, this doesn't work, this is just in theory, it's schoolhouse stuff, but in the real world, blah, blah, blah. And then I come into a group of people, whatever that group looks like. It could be coffee Tuesday mornings at, the local community college. But if I see the Louise, who is really more successful and a little more busy than I was, she's doing it. Well, how did she do it? Oh, she had this question. Oh, I had that question too. I just was too scared to ask, or I had never thought about that situation. Having a group of people that are going through it at the same time you are works very well. Trying to do it by yourself, not so much. Doing it one on one is okay, but even then, you can kind of weasel your way out. And the reason I say that a group is important because so many other people, I go back to that original point, are kind of living in this bubble, the matrix. Well, you're just busy. Well, that's just how life is, and you get a badge of honor if you can tell somebody how busy you are. If you tell somebody else you're trying to cut your time, their first thing is to try to make you not do that because they can't envision a scenario where that exists. They don't mean to, but they're trying to bring you back down to earth. Any other colleagues you have that do what you do, friends, family, whoever, they're like you ever heard about, if you put crabs in a bucket, you don't have to put a lid on because once one crab starts climbing up, the other crab grabs them and brings them back down. I don't know if that's true. It'd be worth a Google, but that's what we do to each other. So you've got to find other people that are a little like you that think, I don't want to work 60 hours a week. This is stupid. I'm making minimum wage. I want to enjoy my life. So if you can get within that group that does that, then life is so much easier. And then, you're asking about what do you do with all these other items? There's options, and I love the good eliminate option. I mean, there's so many things we do that experiment with it for a week. Try not doing that for 1 week. I mean, Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, say that the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything.
So, so true. Even sometimes when you go in and you start your working day and you have a plan in your head of what you're going to do, and then something happens and you don't do any of it, you're just firefighting. I think a lot of people spend a lot of their time firefighting. They're just reacting to what's coming at them, but it's not actually productive or it's not helping them achieve their goals.
But we like doing it because we feel important
and busy.
I'm so busy, and I must be doing something right because I'm still here, and our experience lies to us sometimes. I mean, if a lot of us were cave people, we'd have been eaten by the saber-toothed tiger by now. We live in a day and age where you can kind of be mediocre and just keep getting by because busy will eventually propel you into just something, enough to make the house payments. But golly, it's a lot easier than that at this point. But yeah, there's so many items that so I'll go back, we shouldn't be doing, period. And there's a ton of, I have people in the group now that are eliminating a lot of extra meetings that they would call themselves because they just felt like that's what I'm supposed to be doing because they dragged it in from the corporate world, or a lot of people that want to pick their brain for an extra, whatever it is, let's have a virtual coffee. And those can be good, but you have to make the trade-off. They're eliminating TikTok. I got one person in the group that has freed up her 8 hours by just going from 3 hours a day to 1 hour on TikTok. And 1 hour on TikTok is still sometimes too long.
Oh my goodness, 1 hour on
And
TikTok.
this is a grown-up. This is an adult. This is an entrepreneur who's kicking butt and taking names. And just, I have one that was always asked to be on the next board or next committee or serve here or help there, and always had that guilty conscience of feeling, well, I need to do this. Freed up almost 8 hours immediately from taking her off 2 boards that she'd been on for a couple of years that were, she was just there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, great. So it is possible to work a 4-day week and to be more productive and achieve your goals if you actually put your mind to it. So I want to invite anyone who's listening here, let us know what you think. Make sure you tag me, make sure you tag Charles. How did people tag you, Charles? Where did they find you?
They can find me. The website's the easiest way to find me. YourCharlesAlexander.com. And every social handle I have is Your Charles Alexander. Makes it very simple.
Very good, very good. Okay, what about AI? What do you think about that? How's that gonna is that gonna make us more productive or
That's a
waste more time?
I love AI, and unfortunately, people are already figuring out how to use it to waste more time. So one of the pieces I always tell folks is try to figure out what you're doing now that you could possibly automate. There's so many digital tasks that there's a tool that will do that. Look, I know the robots are taking over. Just let them. They're just hand it over. But so much of the email marketing you do, or email follow-up, or data entry, or trying to get your CRM to talk to your project management database, or gosh, just anything that you're entering somewhere, it could almost always be automated. There are a ton of automation tools that are out there. I mean, even you and I, when we scheduled this, Louise sent me a scheduling link. Do you know that we spend on average 15 minutes scheduling a meeting? We spend 15 minutes to have a meeting, not the meeting, just to set it up. And on average, you people are having 10, 15 meetings a week. That means they're spending 2.5 hours just talking about setting up meetings. We can't keep doing that. So easy one, set up a calendar link. Hook it to your, whatever online calendar you're using, and, give them times book with you. And by the way, that gets into batching. Batch all of the things you do most common together. If you got them spread out all over the place, you're constantly switching mindset, and that is exhausting. But either way, AI, great. Chat GPT, I know it's gotten dumber. I met it when it first came out. It was so smart, and then now it's hung out with us, and it's like, I think it drinks a little. I think it does a little day drinking, and it's got issues, but it's okay. I still love you, Chat. But quit Googling things. If you want to know how to do something, go into Chat. Now, granted, it's pulling from the World Wide Web, so it's not always going to be 100% correct, but there's a lot of cool things it can do. I mean, even it can act semi like a virtual assistant. The other day, I'm in Excel. You would appreciate this, Louise. I'm automating some emails. Well, I've got the entire name, Louise McDonald, all in one column. So if I want to say, hey, Louise, I don't want to say, hey, Louise McDonald. That shows you it's not very personal. So I've got a row of names, and I've got to put the first name in one column, second name in another column. I can give it to my VA. Then I thought, I'm going to try this out. I have the paid for version of ChatGPT. I upload it to Chat. Say, can you make this 2 columns? Sure, Charles. And it gives me the spreadsheet. It did it for me. I'm not telling you that's a great find. I'm just telling you, when you're asking about AI, it can do a ton of stuff. The place where we start to really lose time with it is when we experiment nonstop. Every time there's a new tool out there, it doesn't mean you have to race right away to go play with it.
So true. So true. Okay, so any final bits of advice then you'd give, Charles, to people?
There's a lot of it. Just one other thing, batching, like I had mentioned before, is almost like a cheat code. If you can really get to a point where you batch like tasks together, that will immediately free up a lot of time and space in your mind, which works in the real world. So either way, there's 1,000 things I could show you. I do live Q&As regularly on LinkedIn. If you'll go to my site, find me on LinkedIn, attend one of those. They are not sales pitches, folks. I literally get people on there 5, 6, 10 at a time, and we go around the room over and over and over. And I'm talking to everybody in their personal situation, helping them figure out how to batch their time, what to eliminate, what they should set a goal for. And it's very in-depth, personal, and it's something I enjoy doing.
Brilliant. Okay, well, look, I think everybody should check that out. Check Charles out on LinkedIn and hop on a call with him, because, I'm certainly more motivated for sure following this podcast to think, first of all, what am I going to do on that day off? And how am I going to get to a 4-day week? And something as well, I think it also would be a wonderful option to be able to offer your employees. So to hold on to people, is to say, if you can get your work done in 4 days, happy days, so it's about productivity rather than time.
Correct. And that's coming for anybody that's wanting to retain employees. That's not something I created, but that's starting over here, and it's in your neck of the woods too. 4-day work weeks are becoming a thing.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for all your advice. I really enjoyed this conversation. If you enjoyed this, make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, and make sure that you let us know on social media what you think. So you'll find me under Sell on Social M, or on LinkedIn, you'll find me under Louise McDonald. Thanks so much, Charles. It's been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Social Media Takeaway podcast. If you loved this episode and want deeper support with your marketing, head over to sellonsocialmedia.academy/hello.